Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Outside Insider podcast here on Philly Sports Network with myself, Liam Jenkins. You know the score by now, all things Eagles related from the last 7 days, wrapped up and put inside a trash bag at this point because why? Well, we've had a bit of a week of it, haven't we? We've had trash play on a Sunday, trash talking on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, we've got anonymous sources, trash players cut after the game. It's been a week of trash. And this podcast is the icing on the trash cake. I'm the banana peel on the top of the garbage pile. And if you're listening to this thinking, hey, why is a British guy talking about trash and why am I into it? This isn't the show for you, alright? I can't tell you what you are and aren't into, but I can tell you if you want more Eagles content, it would mean the world to us if you could hit subscribe to this podcast on the platform that you're listening on. Whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Podbox, the orange one, or even inside of a player's helmet, wherever you get your outside insider injection, just hit subscribe. Alright, it means a lot. Now this podcast in particular is a bit of a wild one for me. I don't mean to push about out there, but for once I've done exactly zero preparation. Because I think this week has been so intense that it doesn't warrant it. It's really like, normally I'll spend 2 hours before a show going through notes and anecdotes and that sort of thing. You still got all the regulars, thank you, next will be here later on. But there's so much that went on this week. You had awful play against the Vikings on Sunday. Zach Brown cut on Monday. Doug Peterson guaranteeing a win on Tuesday. Alex Singleton being called up on a Wednesday. On Thursday you have anonymous sources coming out, and on Friday injury reports where everyone's dead. Great. What a start. Like, this has been a train wreck of a week from start to finish, and it's a really tricky one to navigate because I don't want to harp on too much about the loss to the Vikings. There will be aspects we do have to relive, so apologies in advance for any PTSD you will suffer from this game. But I do feel as though this is a very, very important week for the Eagles and everything has gone about as wrong as it could. Okay, so let's just rewind it, and I made a point on Twitter that I'm not going to talk too much about the Josina Anderson stuff because it's for clicks. Like, fair enough to Josina Anderson, she's doing her job, someone gives her information, she puts it out. That's her job as a reporter, okay? I fully understand that because I'd be the same. But anyone third wheeling off of that, any blog, website, writer that is going, oh, anonymous player, so expensive. Why? Why are you enhancing the circus? There's no point, right? If you're chasing clicks, cool, fair enough. PSN, we don't do it, we don't need it, that's not who we are, not what we do. So you won't see any of that BS from us, essentially. However, we do have to acknowledge it in a slightly different light, and I want to get to that, because you come off a loss where your team is absolutely embarrassed. And I mean embarrassed. Like, pants pulled down, spanky bot, embarrassed. It is disgraceful. I mean, to put it on an LJ scale of embarrassment, that loss to Minnesota from a defensive perspective was about as embarrassing as that time when I was in college, and there was a floor-to-ceiling print of my face, and I kept having to take it down and reapply it because people kept drawing penises on my chin. It's that level of embarrassment, alright? So you come off that, and the Eagles go and make a statement. Well, before we even get to that, Malcolm Jenkins calls out Sidney Jones. Directly, like, it's indirect shots, but it's sort of like putting heartbroken songs on your Instagram story, hoping your ex sees it. It's that kind of indirect, like, he knows what he's doing. Sidney heard the comments. Doug has spoken directly about Sidney Jones before the game, saying he's got to run through a wall. Well, they didn't say the same about Deshaun Jackson, though, only that he never had the injury. So there's another thing we can talk about. But that happens. Then Sidney Jones gets abused. Then, in the middle of the game, Malcolm Jenkins is going at him, like shouting at him. I'm like, great, that's going well. After the game, same happens. Monday morning, Zach Brown out the building, gone. No player seems to care about it. No coach wants to talk about it. There have been reports that he's not a good locker room fit, that he was more of an individual, that he didn't buy into the philosophies of the team. His play seemed to lack effort against the Vikings, in my opinion, especially after the first couple touchdowns. But it was a starting linebacker who played in the bulk of snaps this season and was tied third for the team lead in tackles, right? It's a big guy to lose. Whether you agree with his points, whether you hate the fact he made them, or whether you don't see the value he brought, he was a key guy on defense, alright? He was like one of the PFF elite run defenders from the last couple of years. That was never going to change. So you lose him, and the Eagles haven't gone out and replaced him directly. They've got Duke Riley, of course, they acquired from the Falcons earlier in the Jonathan Cyprien trade. You've also got Nate Jerry. See, I shouldn't have had a beer because I've got a bit of wind. I'm very sorry. I'm trying to be very gentlemanly about this. You've got Cameron Grugio-Hill, TJ Edwards, and Alex Singleton. That's your linebacking group. Was Nigel Badham's gone? So, Nigel Badham's injured. Nate Jerry, I made a video on him. I think he's had flashes. He's showing improvement, but it's not enough. He's still struggling. TJ Edwards has played garbage time snaps in 2 weeks and looked okay. Like, he looks serviceable. And Cameron Grugio-Hill is my little linebacker crush, bless him. He's class, so he's out of this conversation. But you wouldn't cut a starter with that in mind. If you're going to lose Bradham and Brown, you wouldn't go into week 1 without Bradham and Brown. You wouldn't, right? Especially with that group. You'd have to seek help elsewhere. So it makes that move a little bit concerning. I know the salary wasn't really a factor, but it's something to bear in mind. Especially then, when after making claims that Kirk Cousins is a weak link in Minnesota, Doug Peterson goes on WIP after cutting Zach Brown and guarantees a win in Dallas. Now, if that doesn't happen, are they going to cut Doug Peterson? Is he gone? Because it seems a bit, of all the times to guarantee something, I get you need to galvanise the locker room right now. Seems a bit counterintuitive though, doesn't it? Seems a little bit out of character, a little bit too far. You wouldn't do, it just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't make sense to me. Sort of like, you wouldn't go onto a football field, like a lunchtime with your friends after losing 7-0 or soccer, however you want to call it, and guarantee a win the next time. Because you've been humiliated once, you might be again. Just don't, alright? No, I get you need to be confident, just so we're going to go in there, have a good football game, everyone's excited. All you need to say. But then to rub salt in the wounds, making it even worse, an anonymous player comes out and says, the Eagles aren't doing this, the offense isn't doing that, Carson Wentz needs to throw it downfield more, Carson Wentz needs to throw the checkdowns more. Brilliant. So, you've gone from Zach Brown trash talking being cut, to Doug Peterson guaranteeing a win, to Malcolm Jenkins having a go at Sidney Jones, to now an anonymous source coming out and giving all these, I think Josina Anderson's numbers were there for context, but at least giving a hot take that Carson Wentz is somehow the problem. Now you can speculate all day on who that player was. That's not what we're here for. I'm not that guy. This isn't that article. I'm not that blog, alright? This isn't what we do. But it is, to me, a sign of a bigger problem. I think there is something bigger going on inside the locker room. People are unhappy, as they should be at 3-3. I think it's a coaching problem, personally. We've been through this a million times. I think it comes down to schemes on both sides of the ball right now. Wentz is certainly not to blame. Why they're trying to scapegoat him, I don't know. The Zach Brown's move to me felt like a Stefan Wisniewski type move from last year, where they benched him because you can't really bench anyone else because, well, you just can't. So it's just resemblant of something a bit bigger. You've got all these tiny little fractures. Jenkins at Jones, Doug guaranteeing a win, Brown cut, anonymous source. The one thing Peterson has been fantastic at since getting this job is shutting out distraction. You've got Nigel Bradham getting a fight over an umbrella. You had the strip club incident. Everyone forgets that in 2016. You had Sam Bradford, Fletcher Cox, Darren Sproles all holding out for contracts in 2016. Ever since then, outside of Daryl Worley's bizarre DUI, which was weird, wasn't it? It was like a day after that. Oh, he's going back to Philly, could be trouble, gets the DUI. What are they expecting? Like, oh, I'm going to go to Philly and just drive it. Oh, unreal. Anyway, to me, there's something bigger going on. Like, you never see that much dysfunction. This is like a Pittsburgh Steeler level drama. This is like unbuttoned up, chaos, coach hasn't got a handle on it, all the wheels are coming off at once, and then I go out and win. That's the Steelers. And then I make the playoffs. That's the Steelers. But there's so much drama all of a sudden. And I don't know where it's come from. And it's really kind of worrying me at this point because I don't know how the team can get out of it and fix it. Like, what do you do? You've got players talking to the media, players talking on other players being released for talking on other players, and coaches guaranteeing wins. That's 3-3. That is a 3-3 move if I've ever seen it. Some people then getting very aggressive that Howie Roseman, he should have got Jalen Ramsey. Players defending him to the bone. Players should have to go out and defend their GM for not trading for Jalen Ramsey for 2 first-rounders and a 4th-rounder. That's more than Khalil Mack, hypothetically. Behave. The players shouldn't have to do that. I don't know what it is. To me, there is just, if you hear, like the emptiest cans make the most noise, a beat writer very, very once wisely said to me when I was trying to unconvincingly handle trolls on Twitter. And it's stuck with me ever since. Emptiest cans make the most noise when you kick them. The Eagles have been beaten to a pulp, and that can is rattling so bad. Like, there is a beehive in that can, and it is flying around everywhere, and I don't really know what more you can do. It's very, very bizarre. And again, I don't want to speculate. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, there's a locker room problem. Doug's lost the tee. I'm not that guy. I said there's pressure on Jim Schwartz. I think there is. At least pressure to make a change. Whether that's sacking or not, I don't know. But that's what I wanted to open this show with. Because you can look, there will be shows, there will be articles focused on one point. On Zach Brown. On Doug Peterson. On the anonymous source. No one's connecting the dots. There is something underlying here with this team, and it has to be ironed out, because Dallas will take advantage of it. DeMarcus Lawrence bites back. Doug Peterson then goes out and shuts DeMarcus Lawrence up. Like, I know it's rivalry week, I get that. But this isn't the position to start trash talking. You just don't do it. I'm lanky, I've got a 38-inch vertical. I do not go up to the biggest, beefiest guy at a nightclub and start giving it lip. In fact, my way out of fights is, I mean, to be fair, there was one time when tipped a box of chicken nuggets over someone. That's a very different story. That's the only fight I've ever won. 1-0, baby, undefeated. But I just wanted to keep it in mind. Emptiest cans make the most noise. I think the Eagles have a lot, and I mean a lot, rattling on right now. There is more than just there's a problem on defense, problem on offense. This guy's injured, that guy. There is more to it. I think players and egos are starting to come into this now because there is overboiling frustration. There is overboiling emotion. I wouldn't even be surprised if it was Carson Wentz talking about Carson Wentz, for Christ's sake. Like, that guy's got the most reason to be frustrated of anyone. If I was Carson Wentz, I'd be seething right now. Now, I can understand why the players would, but you don't attack your quarterback. If you're going to go out and make a point, speak truth. Speak on the secondary being diabolical. Speak on the coaching staff being diabolical. Speak on that weird field goal attempt. Speak on the fact you're surrendering close to 350 passing yards and 3 touchdowns a game. Diabolical. Do not sit there and clown a quarterback who has literally dragged you out of hell every single game like he's auditioning for an episode of Saving Private Ryan. Something is going on with this team. I don't know what it is. And hopefully you get it sorted by the end of week 7. But that was an opening rant. That's the tone for the course. Guys, if you enjoy this, stick around. Full podcast is coming up later if you listen on YouTube. If not, don't worry. Go down. I'm just going to have a little sip of beer. There we go. I needed that. That was emotional. But now we're calming down. Now we're settling down a little bit. I think it's time to go to part 2 of the show. Which is, it's your favourite part. It's my favourite part. It's everyone's bloody favourite part. It is, of course, Thank You Next. And I'm just going to quickly log into Twitter to find my mentions and find the questions. But we've only had a few this week. I'm not happy about it. Alright? I leave it. I put myself at risk. I put out a picture every Friday morning saying, hey, ask me questions. Flood thy mentions. And some of you don't. So I need you to step up, guys. If you're fans of the show. At Liam Jenkins PSN. If I look lonely on the timeline, what's my WCW going to think? You're the one giving me all the love life analogies. Help a brother out, alright? Come on. Anyway, here we are. We've got 4 questions. Thank you! Next to Teddy Beriani says, did waiting on trading for a cornerback, especially considering the haul for Ramsey, increase the price we'll need to pay if we try to trade for a top tier 1, i.e. Peterson, Harris, or Adoree Jackson? That in itself, I think, is a very good question. Because now if the Eagles do look elsewhere, then naturally teams are going to go, oh, well, if you were going to give this to the Jags, then you're going to have to give us this for this. I totally see that logic. The other thing that I don't think so much it's the time frame, because Jalen Ramsey had back problems, he had the birth of his child. There's loads of things that played into that. The one thing that's hurt the Eagles, though, is that as time's gone on, injuries have got worse, and the defense has got worse. So their desperation is getting worse each week, and that's going to enhance the price. Because a team, let's say the Cardinals, who have Patrick Peterson, they know the caliber of player Peterson is. Everyone does. You're not going to give him up for tiddlywinks. And then all of a sudden, you've got a team that goes from, yeah, you know what, a first and a second sounds cool, but we'll wait. And then you give up a lot to, let's say, week 3 or week 4. You're like, okay, well, you beat the Jets in week 5. Well done. Good. Yeah, okay, maybe the price comes down a bit. You're not that desperate. If we do want to sell, let's push him a bit. But now you've got, like, people in a shop begging. This is iPhone launch day. People outside begging to be in a queue right now. And that's important. Because the Eagles are only getting worse defensively. And I don't think it'll get any better with Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills back. And we'll touch on that in just a little bit as well. So the price will go up. Unfortunately, I don't think Jalen Ramsey has had much to do with it. It's just the fact that the Eagles are now that much more desperate for help. Derek Bob at Pod Street Bob, one of our writers here at Philly Sports Network, our lead Flyers writer, and of course, host of the Pod Street Bullies podcast, which I haven't been on in a while. I'm a bit heartbroken about that. All right, boys, let's sort it out. He says, Eagles secondary and Cowboys receiving corps are both looking rough. Who has the advantage on Sunday night? Well, the answer is the Cowboys, because their receivers are capable of doing what's asked of them, which is basically running a scheme. The Eagles aren't. And when you've got Jalen Mills, sorry guys, to put you through that again. Jalen Mills and Ronald Darby both coming back, both off injury, both maybe struggling, both not 100%. You're gonna get eaten up, especially in this scheme if Schwartz doesn't make an adjustment. That's what it comes down to. If Schwartz does not make an adjustment, if Jimmer of Schwartzington does not change this defense, it's advantage Cowboys. There's no other way of looking at it. So that'll be fun. Thank you. Next, Will Roberts, who is the best option for trading at cornerback and wide receiver. I don't really know on that word. It's really hard to say. I mean, as much as I don't like Adoree Jackson, I think that he's got the speed that Schwartz needs to even give his cornerback a chance of recovering on a double move and that sort of thing. So I can see Adoree Jackson. That would probably be the name I look at right now. Otherwise, there's no point. I mean, Skandrik's fine in the nickel. You've got your starters back. And the thing is, if we're looking at it in week 7, thinking we need help, everything's gone wrong, we need cornerback help right now, this is the same group of corners that was there in week 1. The same group that everyone was absolutely fine with. Apart from me, might I add, again, just rubbing salt in that wound, the only one that trashed Ronald Darby since day 1, and people were laughing at me for it, yeah? Not laughing now, are you? Right, anyway, moving on. Thank you. Next, our final question of the day comes from Fresco Principe Mysterio, who, might I add, if he's listening to this, has the best mask. It's like a Rey Mysterio mask, but it's got an NFL logo embroidered on, the Kelly green colour, and an Eagles logo on the side. I don't think that's him. I've just realised that's a picture of Fletcher Cox. But he's got a mask on. So, the mask's cool anyway. I hope you're that beautiful in real life. Anyway, moving on. He says, how do the Eagles correct their slow starts on offense that have been plaguing them for the past 2 years? That is a fantastic question. And one I think, honestly, would probably need a whole podcast to answer. It's not something we can just go, oh, well, the answer's run past balance, or the answer's take more deep shots, or take more check downs. It's not that simple. What's clear to me is the opening scripts aren't working. And if you defer the toss every time you get the coin, which is a 50-50 chance, and you allow a team to take 6 minutes off the clock and score, and you get held to a 3 and out because your opening 5 plays that you've schemed and game planned in aren't working anymore, you're then behind, and you're then at a disadvantage, and you could be 2 scores down. And that's what's happened essentially every game this season outside of the New York Jetios, because, well, they're the New York Jetios. They don't do anything without Sam Darnold. So for me, it's looking at why aren't these plays working? Why can't we get down the field and score? Is it that it's too obvious, it's too conservative? Like, a shot play is good, but if it sets up 2nd and long or 3rd and long, you don't really want it. You want a shot play on 3rd and long more than anything. You want to run on 1st down, get to maybe 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6, take a check down, get a rhythm going. That's the thing, it feels disjointed for me, and that's what it's really hard to fix, because I can't sit here and say, run more zone weak, or run more of a certain play, or RPOs this, or slants that. It's really difficult, because it's matchup dependent. But the Eagles, they can't get a rhythm. And I think that if you run the ball insistently early on downs, that won't help. You need to probably run it on one of two, fair. You don't need to do it 3 or, it's just being smart, which is what it comes down to. Like, you don't want to have Darren Sproles on a pitch and going behind and backwards on 3rd and 5. Like, that is a big no-no from me. So that'd be one thing I look at. The other thing, as silly as it sounds, screen passes that don't go to Alshon Jeffrey would probably go a long way. The guy looks like the hunchback of Notre Dame when he catches a screen pass. It's terrifying. He's 6'4", trying to bury his head through contact when in an open field, and he moves at the speed of a bloody army tank. There's no point in it at all. I'm not a fan, and they should be obliterated off the face of the earth. Get him to Miles Sanders, get him to Jordan Howard, Nelson Aguilar, just get him to Jordan Mailata over bloody Alshon Jeffrey. Just do something. But there you go. That's how I would answer that question for you. Okay, so next part of the show, we're going to loop a couple different things together, and it is sponsored by My Emotional Breakdowns. once a week, every week. You can always rely on my emotional breakdowns. That's our show sponsor. So anyway, we need to talk a little bit about Jalen Ramsey. I don't want to do it because people are going to get upset. But Tuesday in particular was a very hard day for people because it is like having a crush on a girl and just watching her walk out of the club with someone else. Is what happened. You've bought her drinks all night. You've got your mates texting her saying, oh, you should really go on a date. And then she just walks out with someone else. And you go home listening to Wherever You Will Go by The Calling. And that's it. That's the tea. That's the tweet. I get hurt, I get it, because people obviously got a little bit more desperate after last week against the Vikings, and when you hear that there's a bit more leverage for Khan to trade Jalen Ramsey, you assume that Howie Roseman's going to do the Howie because it's the type of franchise-changing move he's become renowned for, but the fact is, when has he ever traded for a star? Like, it was never really likely, in my opinion, and the price tag was always high, and if the Rams are going to give up the King's ransom to get him, then fair enough. I'm of the opinion, I have been for a while, that Ramsey would not fix his secondary because it is so schematically flawed. There are communication breakdowns, and just Ramsey coming in does not help players talk better. Alright, that bit wouldn't change. So I'm not really a big fan of the move. But I understand why people wanted it, and I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it. I just wouldn't go out and actively make it. But, you know, some people say that saying nothing is better than saying something. Like, sometimes saying nothing is better than saying nothing at all. In the words of Ronan Keating, have you heard my Ronan Keating? I don't think I've done a Ronan Keating impression on the podcast. If you don't know who Boyzone are, I'm very upset. But there was a song with little Ronan Keating. It was in a film somewhere that went, you say best when you say nothing at all. And that is about as good as an impression as I do, right? That's fine. The Eagles didn't say anything. They didn't go out and get Ramsey. But sometimes it's better to say nothing than try and take away what you've said and dig yourself out of a hole. So, good example, okay? Here's the perfect example of this week. LJ walks into a cafe. He gets a coffee and what I think you call a grilled cheese sandwich. I was like, brilliant. I'm doing my coffee, putting the sugar in, having a little stir, thinking about what great content I'm going to write today. And the woman comes to the till and she's like, oh, your toasties here. You know, what we call the grilled cheese. And I take it off her. I go, thank you. She says, enjoy. I go, you too. Now, at that point, it was better to have said nothing than nothing at all, right? But it would be even worse to pull back on that. And unfortunately, that's what I did. I say, enjoy, you too. And at that point, something in my head ticks that, wait, she's not, oh, I've done that thing. Oh, I've done the thing when a waiter gives you food and you say thanks, you too. Oh, no. And because I was so aware of that, I went, no, don't, and shouted at her. And as I shouted, I spilt coffee everywhere. So, for context, the whole conversation went, there's your toasty, thank you, enjoy, you too. No, don't, oh, no. Do you see what I mean? So the Eagles, who could have very easily taken that toasty and walked into this season, week 7 game, I should say, with that Dallas Cowboys, just with the secondary, everything's fine, don't need to change anything. You don't have Ramsey, but hey, you haven't lost anything, alright? You've still got your toasty. Then, Doug Peterson comes out and says it's likely that Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills are going to start. And that's bad. That's really bad. That is the worst thing you could do. And I do not care who comes at me and says in the comments, I've been on this hill since day one, right? Something is fundamentally wrong with that player. Forget the fact for a minute that they're coming off injury and are likely less than 100%. Jalen Mills hasn't played a football game in close to a year. Forget it. Ronald Darby has a skill set where he is quick and tackles with the consistency of your stomach after a Vindaloo. Jalen Mills gambles on himself more than a gambling addict, can tackle, doesn't have any speed. So if a quarterback gets pick your poison, you want a quick release, you go to Jalen Mills. You want to go down deep, you go against Jalen Mills. If you want to come underneath, you go to Ronald Darby because on a one-on-one matchup in space, he's not making that tackle, he's going down like a sack of potatoes. So forget the fact they've not played. They could be rust. They'll give up plays. They've not played together. Forget any of that logical stuff. That fundamental reasoning alone is enough for the alarm bells to start ringing, right? And then Then you've got the Rasul Douglas situation. And this bothers me. On a really, really serious level, this absolutely bothers me. Because since day one, Rasul Douglas has been the ugly duckling. The ugly duckling of that group. It's horrible. Bless him. Year one as a rookie. Comes in, Ronald Darby out for 8 weeks. Douglas fills in, rookie ups and downs, has some nice ball production, and begins to find the rhythm. He gets ripped out of that for Ronald Darby, who then struggles again. And Rasul Douglas, again, I've said this story before, was unsettled with that, upset with that. It may have indeed fueled that sort of rift between Schwartz and Douglas, where Douglas wouldn't get on the field. So you fast forward to 2018 with that rift in mind. Injuries absolutely derail the secondary from any kind of meaningful play. And the Eagles go out and acquire Dexter McDougal to play snaps. Dexter McDougal, who hadn't played in a year, hadn't played a regular season game in about a year and a half, comes in, runs into Jordan Hicks and falls over, and then they finally give Rasul Douglas a shot. And he leads the team in interceptions, and he does play a bit better. Now, has he developed, into a Pro Bowl talent? Absolutely not. But he's serviceable, and he gives you a little bit more production than some of the other guys do. Fast forward another year, 2019. Ronald Darby can't start the season. Rasul Douglas can start the season. Rasul Douglas has been the most dependable cornerback the team have, even when Ronald Darby is on the damn field. I don't care what you say. I said this before. Okay, that sounded really mean. I didn't mean to be mean to you. I'm sorry. You're not arguing with me. I'm very sorry about that. But I don't care what anyone says about Ronald Darby. And, he's quick. He's the best corner. He was really good at Buffalo as a rookie. Fine, lovely. But he can't tackle, and you can downplay the value of tackling as a cornerback all you want, that's fine. But the fact is, they scheme him in one-on-one matchups against running backs, against elusive receivers who put him on skates every time. And then when that happens, it's, oh my god man, Ronald Darby's so trash. And then you come out and say, and then you get aggressive with it. But outside of that, you don't care. Forget the tackling deficit. It's, he's the best corner. He's not the best corner if teams are abusing a weakness. If his weakness was coverage, then fine. But they're going down underneath. They're picking him apart because he's got a significant weakness. So Rasul Douglas, who has been the best cornerback on this team, the most consistent cornerback on this team all year long, through sickness, through health, through good, through bad. You can look at those plays, those post-touchdowns he's given up. All of them have communication breakdown. There are a couple where he's out of phase, or he makes a bit of a mistake, or his positioning's not excellent, or he gets a bit too grabby. Rasul's main fault is that he's not quick. That's no fault of his own. He didn't choose that. I'm sure he'd change it if he could, but he can't. So the Eagles need to scheme safety help over the top. They do, the safety comes down, and still gets abused. Because there is no safety help supporting him. If you're playing... Right, okay. If I'm telling you that I'm going to go through a door and you're going to stop me, and you're expecting someone to walk through the middle of the door in a big, beefy suit to push me down, you wouldn't stand in front of him. You stand to the side and let him do his work, right? That's what Rasul Douglas does. He shades outside. He opens his hips from the snap to play bell technique, trail technique, and let the safety come down. The safety never comes. So I just go straight through those doors. That's what happens. Now, if I am Rasul Douglas, I am enraged. I am incandescent with rage. I am fuming. And I told you, there's no script on this podcast. That I am genuinely livid for Rasul Douglas. It's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. Because all that's going to happen are the Eagles are going to go out, put out Jalen Mills, who's going to bite on a double move. And if he does that stupid flexing again, where he cocks his head back and forward like a bloody chicken, I've had enough. I'm out. Honestly. So get the contract done. Cut him. I'm done. Right? Ronald Darby, on the other hand, we all know the deficit's there. The finger wag, I can excuse. The ball will sail 30 yards over his head and a finger wag comes out. Fletcher Cox is out to tell him to basically behave before. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. And Rasul Douglas, who has pretty much showed up when the Eagles need him to as a serviceable corner. Not elite, not good, not great, serviceable, which is certainly better than the rest of the stinking trash heap they've got right now. They're going to bench him again. They're going to sideline him again, despite the fact that no other corner they have got can play a full season. No other cornerback they've got can stay healthy. No other cornerback they've got can avoid going, oh, me hammy. No other cornerback they've got can play the run like he does, can tackle like he does, can stay in man coverage outside of Ronald Darby like he does. If I am Rasul Douglas, trade me, get me out, I'd go to reporters, I would make comments. I don't care. I'd be like, do you know what? If all I can do is bring you my very best every week, when you've got nothing else, even when nothing else is healthy, and you're still going to bench me in favour of those two, why am I here? You spent a 3rd round pick on me for what? You'd rather have a 7th round pick who has done nothing be a starter. Jalen Mills is good with inside 20 yards because he doesn't have to turn his back and run away. I'm honestly, I don't know. If I'm Rasul Douglas and the Eagles want to make a move at the deadline, send him to Denver. Get Chris Harris, send him to Denver and give him a shot at a career. Give him a shot at being a starter. Give him a chance to make an impact. Because that's what he deserves. That's what he deserves. And he won't get that in Philadelphia so long as Jim Schwartz is around. And it is heartbreaking for the kid. Absolutely heartbreaking. So that sums up that rant. Oh, I don't think I can do another one. Oh, we've got one more rant left. We've got 9 minutes of this podcast left. And we're going to end it with, I guess, a bit of a brighter note, but talking about the matchup against Dallas, because it is important. As bad as the last 30 minutes have been, and as stressful as they've been, it's not all bad. The sky isn't falling down. There's just a big storm, and you're soaking wet, and you forgot your umbrella. You're 3-3. A win on Sunday will take you top of the division. You control your own fate. You've got the divisional record going for you. You can go in towards those last few games where you play pretty much every divisional game possible with a head of steam. You've gone through the tough bit now. Other than Chicago, you've got to get through that. But outside of that, you can, make it work. That has to happen. If the Eagles don't, if the Eagles lose to the Cowboys in a similar way where the secondary gets toasted, frankly, if that put over Rasul Douglas, I'm gone. I don't care. Just cut me. I'd be kicking up any kind of fuss I can. Anyone else wants to go to the media, talk to reporters, make comments, guarantee wins when you're 3-4 and you lose to the Cowboys and you lose to the Vikings and you're starting to make silly errors again and shoot yourself in the foot because you won't adapt, there has to be some pressure on the coaching staff. There has to be some pressure of looking at what players have we got, why aren't they developing, and should they be developing? Like, no one's expecting a 5th round receiver to go out and be an absolute baller by year 3. But in that same vein, you are expecting a 2nd round corner to be worth his salt. You are expecting a 1st round pick defensive end to be worth his salt. You're going to have those discussions. Pressure will build. We've seen this before. It can come down like the hammer of Thor extremely quickly. This is a must-win. This is a must-win. We thought the Vikings was a must-win. The Vikings was a should-win. It was a, hey, if you want to go and dominate this year, and you want to go into the playoffs with a bully mentality that you're going to bully and pound and punish everyone in front of you, beat the Vikings. Beat the Packers. This is a, we limp into the playoffs and hope for a miracle run, and we'll play the underdog card again. One that I think, frankly, has run its course. They're no longer you're not an underdog if you make yourself the underdog. You're an underdog if the situation around you cannot be impacted and you are against all odds. If you've got the odds in your favour and you just go, nah, I don't want him, I'd rather be an underdog, you're not an underdog. So that can stop. If the Eagles sneak into the playoffs, I don't know, at this point, I'm speechless. I never thought I'd be speechless. But they have to win in Dallas now. Not only because Peterson's guaranteed it, which would be a massive cancellation of trust, I think, in those around him. But for the sake of sanity, if it is the same pattern, and this is the thing, it is the same pattern again. All-star running back. The Eagles are going to stack the box with 8 defenders, and their secondary will be ruined. because there's no help, because you've stuffed a safety in the box to hold Dalvin Cook to 2.5 yards per carry, while Kirk Cousins has a field day playing Candy Crush Saga on his right hand, throwing dimes with his left, not even looking, and ripping the secondary to shreds. Now you've got Ezekiel Elliott, top 5 ranked running back in the league, beneficiary of a big time payday. And you've got no receivers to help him because Amari Cooper could be out. You're going to see a lot of Zeke Elliott. So you know the Eagles are going to stack the box. So they open themselves up to problems. And it is the same thing again and again and again. It has to change. It has to change. If it doesn't change, I'm scared for this season. I'm scared for this team. I'm scared for my sanity. I'm scared for the amount of beer I will be buying. You know, having beer on a podcast is new for me, but it will only get worse. This might be, and it's a bold take, might be more stressful than my current love life. That says a lot. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I hope the Eagles just save us all. The rants, the heartbreak, the stress, and they go out and they beat Dallas, and we can put all of this behind us and move on to Chicago and think, hey, let's go and cause an upset. Let's go on. Why not? Let's go and throw the cat among the pigeons. As a team, as a galvanised unit that may have Deshaun Jackson back, let's go and kick some ass. Let's go and win. Let's go and make the playoffs and make a championship run. If they don't, I dread to think what I will say next week, but we will get to that in due course. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, guys. It means the absolute world to me. And this has been bizarrely one of my favourite podcasts to record because it's just that raw emotion. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter at LiamJenkinsPSN. I'll see you soon.